Hola, les saluda Josué de la Academia Costarricense de Estudios Nórdicos Tradicionales. Hoy nos complace presentar a un invitado cuyo trabajo ha sido clave para comprender y presentar mm, todas las tradiciones de magia popular escandinava y su continuidad en la actualidad. Johannes Björn Gårdbäck es un reconocido experto en Trolldom con casi 3 décadas de experiencia como practicante profesional de estas artes tradicionales. En los últimos años ha enfocado su labor en la enseñanza y preservación en este conocimiento. Es autor del libro Trolldom, Spells and Methods of the Norse Folk Magic Tradition, o en español, Trolldom, Hechizos y Métodos de la Tradición de Magia Popular Nórdica, una de las obras más completas en inglés sobre la magia popular de Suecia, Noruega y Dinamarca. Su formación también incluye aprendizaje en Hoodoo, que es una tradición de magia popular afroamericana originada en el sur de Estados Unidos, lo que le permitió entender a profundidad distintos sistemas de magia popular desde una perspectiva práctica y etnográfica. Actualmente reside en Gotemburgo, Suecia, donde dirige Urhol, una escuela dedicada a la enseñanza del trolldom, la sabiduría popular y la espiritualidad nórdica. Su trabajo se centra en rescatar prácticas que históricamente fueron perseguidas o mantenidas en secreto, transmitiéndolas de forma estructurada a nuevas generaciones interesadas en estas tradiciones. Johannes, thank you for being with us today and taking the time to join this interview.
Thank you so much, and nice to be here. Hola, Costa Rica.
Yeah. So, Johannes, so if we start the interview talking about the term trolldom or describing trolldom without having to use the labels, because we here in the West we have this custom of putting labels on everything. So my probably we can start. What is trolldom in its most essential way without having to put the label magic on that?
I think everyone knows today what folklore is, somewhat, at least.
Mhm.
Now, folklore is an academic study of traditions in a certain area, folk traditions. Trolldom is the practical study of folklore. So academics read about it, talk about it, interview, create labels, all these things, while we practice what the content is. So I think that's the best way to describe it. And what characterizes Trolldom is, of course, our geographical location, what the landscape looks like, what our seasons look like, um, and of course the people that came here since the ice melted and forward with the different traditions and cultures and that sort of thing, which is still going on here in Sweden. It's not like it's a stagnant tradition by any means. It's growing and evolving.
Mhm.
So I think that's Trolldom is the study of nature and maybe putting words into what we perceive in nature and then applying it in order to navigate our lives and help others with different things that might occur as a hindrance of life in that sense. That's Trolldom.
Mhm. Yep. So when we use the word troll in
Mm.
trolldom, are we really referring to a specific beings? Because of course we probably have heard the term here in America, the word troll, but are we referring when we say that to specific beings of folklore or a broader category, like something that operates outside ordinary human order, like maybe not chaotic or disorderly, but or are we referring to something that is not fully understood or domesticated, or what do we mean when you say the word troll in trolldom?
Well, there is a category of beings
Mm-hmm.
But you have to distinguish between an outsider's view, which is a
Mm-hmm.
non-practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
and someone who is a practitioner who experienced the world rather than just label it in different ways from the outside. From an outsider's view, a troll is a kind of a being, nature being, that is big and dumb, usually, not too kind, very powerful, very interested in gold and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this was kind of formalized in the late 1800s. We had a
Mm-hmm.
national romantic era, national romance. We're building our nation, and we need some kind of nature in it. And then these beings came to be sort of stagnant, which has remained. So in a way, it is a being for an outsider. If we go a
Mm-hmm.
little bit further back, it's a being that is somewhat disturbing, like an internet troll. We're using this word today. It's like unruly, wild, and not domesticated in that sense. Now, if we go
Mm-hmm.
even further back, then this is where we come to a real otherness. So when
Mm-hmm.
people encounter a sensation or an experience that isn't really in their normal perception, perhaps
Mm-hmm.
normal being culturally indoctrinated perception in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something else present. Uh, they would term that a troll. There's something out of this ordinary thing. Now, as a practitioner, this is what we aim for. Not transforming ourselves to anything else, but kind of exploring what are we besides this label of human that we have gotten in that sense? What else is there to perceive in nature? What else is there to perceive in us? And what happens if we interact with that? So Trolldom means that kind of otherness, in a sense, going beyond the border a little bit. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's also, of course, a legal term at some point, which gave it a kind of by outsiders, a kind of a nasty attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So it used to mean pacts with the devil and destructive magic. A certain juridical term for that in the
Mm-hmm.
1600s, and that kind of latched on a little bit. So troll here is a being. Nobody is afraid of that. But if you say trolldom here, everyone goes like this. Then it's the otherness and this dark unknown, which is just not at all what the content is about. On the contrary, as everyone
Mm-hmm.
who is a practitioner knows.
Yeah.
So basically that.
So would you say like troll is a cultural word that when you say like to person from Sweden, like they will go, oh, a troll, but they will what comes to their mind is something that's out of order, disorderly. Uh,
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is probably that it's dangerous, and
uh,
these people are outside of humanity and they're crazy and it's dangerous in all kinds of ways, which is not true. But this is a
mhm.
cultural stigma slap onto it.
That's very, very interesting. That's okay because we have our own words here as well. When you say some words like, oh, uh, um, when you say, for example, some traditional beings from here, for example, when you say la segua is like a monster that's horrible
Mm.
in the nature, and I think that yeah, I can maybe understand there. So. Before we go in further, I have some images to share that I found when exploring your materials in your website, and maybe we can explain to the audience a little bit. So I found some of these things. For example, I found this beautiful landscape looking out to a river. Maybe we can, for the audience to know, this is nearby or at least close to the to your school, right? This here.
Yes, yes. To
Mm-hmm.
if you see the left side of the picture where the tree is,
Yeah.
imagine that you turn your head, you'll see another mountain like this. Just on the other side, that's where the school is.
Oh,
So this is the local river, Örekilsälven, leading out to a big lake and then further into the fjord and then into the ocean, Kattegat or Skagerrak.
okay.
That's what we're looking at.
That's absolutely astonishing. I was gonna ask, maybe if you, for the people to know, might be interested in checking it out, would you mind sharing a bit of your academy or your school, Urhal, to the audience?
So Urhal is a school that I started, well, long ago,
Mm-hmm.
but it has grown into this format now.
Mm-hmm.
On it, there are presentations of the live classes that I have. So
Mm-hmm.
I have a long training, 18 months training, which is just the first part, basically. But it will take a person through the basics from a modern perspective all the way back and present how this Trolldom exists in our folk art and folk songs and all these practices that we have. And that
Mm.
course also exists in a recorded form. So instead of participating live, one can go there and watch the lessons whenever one. Then from
Oh.
there are other classes that, for example, now we're coming up at Valborg, which is Walpurgis
Mm-hmm.
in English,
Mm-hmm.
on April 30th. Then we gather up everyone who wants to come online, and then we travel together to, it's called Blåkulla, Blue Hills, where this spring festival is held. An old
Mm-hmm.
tradition, very much associated with witches. It's probably Indo-European because it's in all European countries if we dig deep enough into the folklore. So we'll go there and we travel together and we're going to go to all these famous locations also. Mountains, basically, it's based on myth, how the ocean rises out of the ocean, mountain rises out of the ocean, and that sort of thing. So we're going back into a mythic place to bring the forces of spring and participate and bring it up and that. So those kinds of events and a lot of other recorded courses for materials. We're
Mm-hmm.
doing the big one on troll formulas, Galders and Bön and this kind of thing now in May.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all there
Mm-hmm.
to be
That's
looked at.
Yep. I
And some
personally.
recommendations to
Oh, mhm.
professional practitioners,
Mhm.
map of Sweden with all interesting places and that sort of thing placed out. There's lots of things on this website.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. So, also, well, I'm lucky to have a personal physical copy of this book, Trolldom. So this was published. Let me correct me if I'm wrong, please. 2015, right? This
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah. So 100% recommended there. Would you mind sharing a little bit about it, of this book?
Well,
Hmm.
several decades ago,
Hmm. Hmm.
I discovered in the birth of the internet that there were other traditions out there that were similar
Yeah.
to our tradition. And
Hmm.
I stumbled upon an Afro-American tradition called the hoodoo or conjure. And I'm
Hmm.
got a little information about it, met some teachers and that sort of thing. And I said, well, this is nice. They have a few things that we don't have. It's developed a little bit differently and so on. So I went there to study. And then I realized nobody knows anything about Trolldom. There's nothing in the English language available. So I'm going to write this book, which is kind of a gathering of the core methods uh, that's existed here for the last 500 years. This is like, there are all kinds of methods, but these are the most common throughout
Hmm.
for healing, for curing, for dealing with different types of environmental spirits and that sort of thing. So it
Hmm.
took me a while to write it, but it was published in the US in 2015. Yeah.
Oh,
But
I
it is
see.
a historical document for practitioners. That's what it
Mm,
is.
great. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that information. So, continuing with the interview, talking about
Mm.
the worldview of Troll and the reality. So, in a world where, if we go a bit of ancient times, if we go a bit to the past, in a world where the invisible was part of everyday life, like we see the world very different today in modern times. What gave the people a sense of security in the face of what they could not see? Because I understand that the Swedish culture or the Scandinavian culture, they tell you when you're a child the folklore stories. Oh, like be aware when you go out into the woods, or especially at night. Be aware of the creatures. So, what gave you a sense of security? Because um, from my perspective, from the modern culture, I would be like, if I don't have technology, if I don't have the nothing to secure me from that place. If I live in the woods or if I live in the countryside, how do you maintain that sense of security?
Two things. One, you go out with protections, which is very common
Mm-hmm.
from whatever beings that might snatch you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's not the most important. Swedes, regardless of religious shifts, political shifts, and that sort of thing, has always been close to nature.
Mm-hmm.
So people here, when Christianity comes, the chieftain says, we are shifting now because nobody would trade with us if we don't shift. So then the political top rulers, they shift. And everyone eventually goes to church where they meet everyone else and blah, 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 listen to the preacher. And maybe they get something out of Christianity. There's another system that also talks about what you are and how we relate to nature and whatever is in us and that sort of thing. Not too bad. But at the end of the day, when we go out in the forest, there's a sense of the modern sense of being separate from nature
Mm-hmm.
is not as strong here, which means that all these, if you think that you are separate and you hold this story really hard, you hold your phone really hard in the forest with a little light, then you'll be scared. And especially if something else shows up, it freaks you out because it's beyond your world, so to speak. But if you
Mm-hmm.
put the phone away and relax, you will sense that this is actually me and nature are not so different. I am here as well. And that provides a sense of community, I suppose, with the trees, with the stones, and even with these beings that might not be always the I don't know, politically correct beings in
Mm-hmm.
different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not too dangerous. We can still relate to them in that way because we're not so separate from them and everything else going on in the forest. It's only when they go overboard, these beings try to drown you because of something, whatever it is, then we have to take action. We
Mm-hmm.
have this modern idea that we don't really question the modern idea of human and the idea of us being here, and then there's a supernatural that's we are separate from, that we know nothing of. That whole idea is usually what freaks us out,
Mm-hmm.
holding that idea. Whilst in reality, in what actually is here, we have all kinds of experience. We're part of this thing. And then it's not as scary, especially not when you know that you can, whatever scares you in the forest, even though you don't see it, you can talk to it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you do, things might change in that experience. Even better, you might give it a little offering. Then suddenly your experience changed from really frightened to welcome. That changes everything. And this is like the basic old cultural know-how that never disappeared here with these shifts. So it's the fact that we have been so close to nature. We have 72% forest. Where people here always go outside because, well, we sit inside the whole winter. So it kind of forces us out once there's a nice weather and that sort of thing. And that keeps us fairly in connection with nature.
Yeah, so I think that that's where the supernatural or the explainable in modern terms is there's a fine line between that, like the supernatural and what we can explain logically. So did it matter to them whether their actions, like or even today, does it matter to you whether your actions would be supernatural or explainable? Or what was the only thing that matters is that whether what you do works within your way of life in Trolldom. So this question comes because mm, we put these labels, right, like that are really strict, and maybe for you or a practitioner of Trolldom, that line doesn't even exist, right?
No, it doesn't exist. And I think that, for example, you go out in the forest, you sense a presence that you cannot see, freaks you out because it feels odd or strange, or there's something about it.
Mhm.
You automatically think, trained by modern culture, to think that might be something supernatural. And I have to apply my logic for it to go away somehow, like it would do the trick. It does sometimes.
Yeah.
Then, if you apply your logic, you might come to it was nothing, I was imagining. Then you might stretch to, oh, it was a spirit. Okay, we'll stop there. Then what are you? Guess what? You're also a spirit. You just happen to have this body. Whatever you encounter did not have that one. That tree over there, also a spirit, but it's in a body. It lives through this thing. So this misunderstanding of what we are, not misunderstanding, but this idea of what we are in relation to what we encounter is usually what messes us up the most. People say, oh, I want to see a tree spirit. Where is it? Where is it? Well, it's right there in
In the
that
tree.
living tree, radiating out what all of its presence, right? Why
Mm,
don't you talk to that? No, I just want to talk to the spirit. But
mm,
yes, but
yeah,
the understanding about us, what
yeah,
we are, we identify with the body and all that. Yeah, but look
mm,
deeper and see
mm,
that there's a spirit here meeting a spirit. Why is that strange or dangerous in any way? More than
mm,
us going out on the street meeting another human being, which is also a spirit in a body.
mm,
So if we
mm,
apply what we learn in life, it's not haphazard what we learned, how to relate to each other in a way that produces the best truth. If we apply that to every other spirit, whether they have a body in the form of a tree or a rock, or if they don't have a physical body, but they have sort of a form somewhere else, maybe. If we apply what we learned about relating, we discover that, oh, wow, we actually know something about how to relate to spirits. They
mm,
might be aggressive and say, what the fuck are you doing here? But if you
mm,
offer them a little beer or something like that, oh, then they open up like this. You
mm,
can't see it happen, but you feel it happen
mm,
sometimes. So
mm,
there's no understanding that what we do in life is not just a human development. It has to do with spiritual development, learning what happens if I'm a really pushy type of person and I use everyone and that really has consequences?
Mhm.
Well, if I learn the consequences, that it doesn't make me feel good, doesn't make them feel good, they won't help me if I drown, if I'm about to drown. If I apply that wisdom to a tree, to whatever is present in the forest, the mountains, in the sky, whatever it is, then these relationships change. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we discovered that we are everything about us is so close to nature that we don't have to look for it.
Mhm. Right.
It's
It's
like
like mhm.
you heard the
Mhm.
story about the little fish who's going to look for the ocean,
No, yeah.
and he goes out and he goes around and around, and turns out that he's in it. He was born in it, and this
Mhm.
is what sometimes clouds us and scares us,
Mhm.
that we don't become simple enough to use that worldview instead.
Right. So it's like a shared you engage with them as a part of a shared reality, not a separate
Yeah.
reality that we have. Yeah. Mhm. So and between all of this, like um something interesting is what role did the ancestors play in the everyday life of a person with this within this worldview? How important or how relevant, like, is the ancestor relationship? Not only, so we're not only talking about a shared reality with beings from nature, but also, can we talk about a shared reality with my ancestors?
Hmm. Well, there are two different views. One, we have the ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
and that is usually divided into three loosely held categories. So it's ancestors of the blood, which
Mm-hmm.
is your relatives. And then we have ancestors of the land, which is those who have lived on the land where you are at before you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have ancestors of tradition that had done the same trade, maybe that you have, like their ancestors of Trolldom, for example, their
Mm-hmm.
ancestors of all the blacksmiths, their ancestors of sailors, and what that sort of. So these three categories are really important for us to relate to, or have a good relationship with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have the whole category of the dead, which is very, very important in Trolldom. In our practice, we consider them to be very close to the human's body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which can have a great effect on us. We can't see them unless we go into the mind, there we see them. But we think we can see them here. Um, that doesn't usually work so well. But even though they don't have a body, they still have a radiation. They might speak or think or do things. And that affects our body, it affects our minds, it affects all kinds of things. So these are the kind of the ancestors are also the dead, so to speak. And then there are different varieties, of course, in endless variety of what state is of mind is the ancestor in now. Maybe they have expanded into to elven beings and all kinds of depends.
Mm-hmm.
But they are very important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, talking about the sound, or the action of making sound. Let me
Mm,
ask you this question from a perspective of what singing is in a modern way, because of
mm,
course, what we think singing is something that sounds beautiful, and that well, we are ruled by singing methods that were um, made relatively recent, because of the
mm,
Italian way of singing and the techniques. But if we talk about ancient traditions, because here we have of course, the local indigenous tribes that have their own way of singing songs that do certain things for certain results. Of course, they didn't have a formation of a specific way of singing for it to sound quote unquote beautiful or pleasing to the ear. Let me ask you this. So, in the past, when singing was not understood as something artistic as it is today, as we classify it, what did it mean to use it as a tool capable of healing or maybe harming as well?
Hmm. To understand this, we have to go back to the very basics of language, syllables, expressions, and all this kind of thing. But I think a simple way of understanding it is to go to singing today. So we give a two singers a song,
Mm-hmm.
same song, same words, same notes, and all this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
One just sings the words and uses their training to produce these sounds. The other one goes in, reads the text, sees what it's about in their mind and in their imagination, and let it wake up these emotions and that sort of thing. And then sings from themselves, from their heart with all their being. How are these two different? This one doesn't touch us. It's noise, it's song, it's beautiful, but nothing moves us. This one, on the other hand, could move us to a great extent. But there's something else if we add the Trolldom perspective. This one is not aiming to heal you necessarily. It's not knowing that it can direct all these things towards another person, a place, or an animal, or whatever. This awareness is added with Trolldom, and that makes it a little bit more than
Mm-hmm.
just this beautiful, touching song. And this part of it has nothing to do with the song itself, very little to do
Mm-hmm.
with the lyrics and the melody necessarily. So if you just learn how to create these things within and then express them with the intention and direction towards someone else to produce a certain new experience for them, that is the Trolldom way of singing. And that could be done in any kind of way, or if you're a little bit more skilled, you'll feel, well, how does these things fit with the sounds that I can produce? And this is when you get something more like, hey, 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 like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or even louder. So then we
Mm-hmm.
can go into different, if we sing fire, for example, everyone can sing fire. It's like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can sing endlessness. It's a very monotone kind of endless thing.
Mm-hmm.
And these things are also, of course, we know it when we without training usually. But the Trolldom training is about noticing what you can already do, and then think about it like this, and then apply it, see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the singing.
Yeah,
So
because mm-hmm.
when we talk about Galder, for example, which is the
Mm-hmm.
older name for troll formula,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it is often said amongst scholars that gala means to cry out really loud, like a rooster, because that
Mm-hmm.
word still applied to the rooster.
Mm-hmm.
There's a common assumption that all Trolldom practitioners, in order to create the magic song, they had
Mm-hmm.
to sound crazy. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And they assume because our word galen, which means someone, means crazy today. But
Mm-hmm.
if we go a little bit back, it means someone who has been equivalent of galder. Someone used the galder on them. So it has nothing to do with the way that they were singing. It has to do with what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
this is what you get when you have outsiders looking at a text and they have no idea what they're They have no experience from any training or anything like that. They can just assume based on the words.
On the words, yeah. So because I see, for example, in the Trolldom book, um, a lot of different either formulas or songs that were applied for things that would be crazy today, like in very dangerous situations. Like for example, if there is a fire going on, there is one for uh, putting it out or reducing it. I don't
Yeah.
remember exactly.
Mhm.
How are you going into that mindset? You know, that's crazy. That the first thing I would do is call the firemen or the
Yeah.
911.
I'll,
But
I'll tell
it,
you,
yeah,
how do you go into that state of mind? We take away your phone.
yeah.
We take away the fire department. We leave you in a burning house. Now it's up to you. What do you know? Well, I know this song. Let's try it. So, of course,
Yeah.
today we would not, that's not the first thing we would do. We
Mm,
would, if there's a fire extinguisher, use that. If
mm,
the fire department is very near and there's time, use that. And then do the song as well.
yeah.
But
Hmm.
you got to understand that the mindset comes out of need, the
Yeah.
strongest mindset. If there's no need for this song only as the remedy against the fire, when we can call the fire department, just call them.
Mm, yep. But
But when you're in a situation where it's
mm,
necessary, like we have seen the last 5 years, big forest fires and that sort of thing. Yes, but that turns out the fire department is not enough for
hmm
this.
hmm
People's
hmm
houses burn down anyway.
hmm
This is when you start getting this need necessary, this
hmm
mindset. It still might not help, mind you, but at least you can participate and try and do more about it. And then it
hmm
turns out that it's been so efficient, some of these techniques, that other non-practitioner like estate managers and natural things in their ancient old manuals 300 years ago, these magical fire extinguishing techniques are also mentioned. If a fire should happen, take one of these stone axes, tie it around with a rope and drag it behind your horse and ride around like this. It's in those manuals. So it
Wow.
works.
Yeah. That and that can vary. Like I can imagine that varying from region to region. Like this region has their own way of resolving that. This other region has their own way. And but today is the same way, regardless of the country. You call the department, call the 911
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and um that's totally a mindset because again, if you back then, of course, didn't have fire department, nothing. How are you going to solve it, right? Well, we know this person that knows this song, or if
Yeah.
you know it, sing it and help.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you have
Yeah.
a laboring woman who's going to
Mm,
die because there's no hospital nearby and the child does not turn, whatever it is,
hmm
what do? You'll sing this song, you'll take this frog, you'll do this and that and this and that.
hmm
What is discovered then is that we must participate with all that we are in this action. Otherwise, it's not a machine, right? It
hmm
doesn't operate on a machine type of level without us in it. If we engage in it with what we can do and what we can bring forth, then we'll discover that, oh, we're actually connected. My imagination is connected to whatever it is that's happening. It's not a fluke of nature or something.
Wow. hmm
But
Great.
because we have been
Hmm
indoctrinated in these natural, supernatural, mechanical worldview from which we are standing outside, observing, isolated, this idea is what holds us sort of holds the mind captive a little bit. So the magic is not, it's not only in the stone. It's in you and the stone together. Without you, I'm going to see if it works. I'm going to tie a rope and I'm going to drag it around. No, it didn't work. No, it's not going to work because you are not participating with your intention, with your imagination, with your will, and so on. So forth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's excellent. Excellent. Okay. So the last part of this interview, and I had a great time. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Let me explore a little bit the the bodies of water, like the sea, the rivers, and the lakes, because we have a lot of that in here as well. And let me ask you, because in Sweden, it's has been going along like that for thousands of years. Whatever society, the Viking society, the tribal society, whatever society, they have dealt with those bodies of water. Let me ask you, where people depended on water, of course, to survive, but um, also with water, like rivers and the sea, it comes with dangers, right? As well. How did that relationship influence the way they understood and practiced this folk magic, or what we know today as Trolldom?
Where do we begin with that? First of all, so we have been populated here for about 14,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you see today, you saw the little river there on the picture that you showed before.
Mm-hmm.
That, of course, used to be 7 meters higher in the Viking age, right? A
Oh.
thousand years.
Mm-hmm.
In the Bronze Age, it was 27 meters higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the landscape was very hard to, there were no roads, of course. There were very little trails, what we understand today to be, something that we can walk and that sort of thing. So people were closer usually to the water lines than inland and the mountains and that sort of thing, dependent on these water lines. And there were far more of them. Today we see little creeks, and it has taken up until now for the archaeologists to understand that, wait a minute, how did they travel from the fjord up that way? Because there's only land in between. Now, this little creek used to be a river.
Oh.
And when they dig there, they discover, oh, it was a trading site. So, and in the mythology, if we go all the way back, we think of the vision of the vulva, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we think mythology starts. It's not exactly where the start starts with a tree, right?
Yeah.
The tree is her first image because it's relevant to us as humans. But if you
Mm-hmm.
look a little bit deeper, it comes out of the ocean, starts with the sons of Sutin raising the tables, right? So there's a earth arises out of water, and on that comes a fire, and then on the fire comes tree, and so on and so forth. So we are born out of water. This is our origin, which is the same as any research could tell you. The mythology kind of correlates with that. And then from there, of course, how you relate to the water, well, it's a being. Someone
Mm-hmm.
is embodying it. Not you, obviously, you're embodying this, but it's definitely alive. It's definitely radiating out things, and it acts in different ways, right? It
Mm-hmm.
gives you different gifts. So that aspect of the river might become, I don't know. If you think about Frey and Freya, for example, they're born out of Njord as the father, and he is
Mm-hmm.
the god of not the endless ocean, not all of the ocean, but the sort of the safe waterways, right? Not the
Mm-hmm.
wild Jotun kind of sea. So they come out of that, and they are, of course, the bringers of fruits and all kinds of things to the people and the land. So there are aspects, the positive aspects of the water gets personalized, um, but also in us, how we are connected to this, the perception of what is watery within us. in different levels. This is also where we can apply what the myth says to us to understand a little bit better about the relationships. Because the relationships in the sagas describes relationships that we observed in nature. And we are also nature, so we can observe it out here and we could observe it in our life experience. If we can observe it, then we can answer maybe a little bit better to the eternal question of what is the right action? What is the right offering and sacrifice, and what do we have to do in order to get the best type of life experience? So there's lots
Mm-hmm.
of things connected, of course, to water in that. You have the nasty ones that try to drown you for different reasons, like Ran, for example, which is more of the wild ocean. A gives kind of domains that means the robber. So she robs us from our lives and that sort of thing. And her daughter, the different waves and that sort of thing. So all these things, all these
Mm-hmm.
labels, usually the most important one, their name means something. So it's not just a name, right? But if you think it's a name, you don't understand what it points to.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm. So,
but
so
all
it.
these are we use the name to basically have a relationship to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who tried to give something to someone who's a little bit pissed off or standoffish or whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
can discover honestly giving something to the river, it responds within us, something happens, and our relationship to the river changes. And those who do it, we think it changes for the better and gives us value in different ways.
Mm-hmm. And that's the so I can wonder like for during the first times the Nordic culture ventured out to the sea, because of course the Viking times was not the first time. I am sure that previous to that, um, the culture there ventured out as well, and I can imagine that since of course you're not going alone in the boat or or the ship or whatever, that since you go with somebody else, everybody there has to be aligned, uh like in some sort of way. There has to be some respect to the sea when they go out. I cannot imagine somebody thinking, "Oh, this sea is some. I don't like it. It's annoying. I don't like the being that lives here." And
They will, but the chances are that the sea is going to snatch them and do blip like this is pretty high.
yeah. So
But they're all trained
uh,
in
mhm,
relating to the ocean
mhm,
in what we would call the right way, right? If you
mhm,
relate to the ocean with arrogance, that's the wrong way. And nature will show you, the ocean will show you what the relationship should be like. Respectful,
mhm,
but not to fear it too much. If we build this relationship uh, together, it's showing us how it wants to relate, and we're showing it how we want to relate. We want to travel by boat. How do we do that? For example.
mhm,
And then
mhm,
this becomes everyone who goes into the boat is, of course, trained in the right uh, mindset, whether it's based on mythology, so that the mindset will continue, or it's carved on rock. We have an enormous amount of rock carvings here with boats, especially.
mhm,
And then maybe we apply this to our soul, which they did, and we still do. The solar boats and that sort of thing. We have plenty, plenty, plenty. And but then we have to pass through the 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 Viking era, where it's almost starting to shift to something else to see what was before this. An
mhm,
enormously rich Bronze Age culture here in Sweden, for example.
mhm, mhm. And so that definitely is a teaching for me because or the society in general. So the aspect of the individual that is so praised today, like the individual being separate from the community, because we don't need to plant. We don't depend on the, how do you call this, the agriculture, or what I do in agriculture to survive. If I work, I can just buy. That
Mm.
didn't exist back then. It was more not so focused on the individual, but on the crew, on the group. Mm, And if you ask me, that also affects how you view the magic. I don't know, the folklore, uh, because that way you can understand that you're not only an individual like one, but a part of a whole. That's how I
This
see it.
is very much where
Mm, mm,
the practice of Trolldom is leading.
mhm,
And to understand, we apply the same to us. We say that there's a me in this body,
mhm,
inside the body somehow. That's how we've been taught. That is supposed to be able to take care of all these things on within inside. But if we look at it, there's many parts of me. One is in conflict with the other, and that sort of thing. If we don't start from there and then go into unifying this, we can't start with unifying it when we're already in an ecosystem. I think
mhm,
that's the wrong way of doing it. But the Trolldom practice leads in the beginning uh, to awaken these creative abilities, magic, spirituality in the sense of abilities. But then comes the more important one, which is wisdom. How are we going to use this in a good way? Because everyone who's been in this long enough discovers that if you just go me, I want this and I'm going to use my magic for this,
mhm,
it turns out to become much worse in life until
mhm,
the day that you start realizing again, oh, wait a minute, I'm part of everything here. Maybe I should start making offerings, helping, participating together.
mhm,
So that's where kind of the trajectory of Trolldom is to rediscover all these things, including our ability of interacting, talking to spirits without a body and that sort of thing, and what it actually does. Because that you cannot read in a book what it does. The experience of it has to be experienced. Once you
yeah.
experience it, it comes back and you get wisdom.
Mhm, mhm,
Next time I know, okay, I'll do this. I'll organize this way. I will offer a little gift before I enter the party at the door to the host, rather than not bringing anything. If I do it by the door, the host goes, welcome, and the party is much better than if I say, well, I should be here and I don't need the gifts and blah, blah, blah.
right.
So the gift at the door is kind of the product of wisdom gained from experience.
Mhm, mhm,
Of course, this is not what modern culture says. Modern culture says me. And
yep.
eventually that leads to nature doing this. Well, we put back here in the beginning somewhere. And everyone who followed your advice, how is it going? Not too good? Okay.
Yeah,
So
I have
basically that.
seen that. Mhm. So many times I have seen that happen
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Johannes, thank you for this interview. Really great time. Appreciate the time you're
Thank you so
taking
much.
and sharing your insights with us. It's been it's been great having you here.
Thank you so much. And I invite you that are looking at this interview to come and check out Sweden and Scandinavia and what we have to offer in terms of our folklore. And you'll discover it's very similar, like you said, to the one that's just under your feet. Thank you.
Thank you.